Iga Swiatek has miraculously won the 2022 US Open after beating Ons Jabeur 6-2-7-6 for her second slam of 2022 and third overall. Swiatek was the world number 1 top seed and the definite best player of the season heading into Flushing Meadows, but she wasn't the favorite by any stretch to hold the trophy on the last Saturday. I'll explain why Iga's latest triumph is excellent for her future and not so much for the women's tour here on Grand Slam Tennis News Today. First, talking about this match itself, Iga had the best possible start and Ons the worst, as the pole went up 3-love to start the match. Swiatek was simply too solid from the ground, while Jabeur just made too many errors. I do think Ons was a bit nervous, understandably, as this is a big occasion playing for your first slam title. However, I was rather surprised by the poor start and potential nerves, because she looked relatively relaxed when she walked out on court. She also had an excellent start in the Wimbledon finals against Rybakina, so I expected more of the same here. I believe Iga being across the net as an opponent added some intimidation factor in a sense, because Ons herself said before the match that Swiatek never loses in finals and always raises her level that much higher in the championship match. I definitely think that she psyched herself out a bit and has somewhat of a defeatist attitude, but she finally started to play her usual game, especially in the 3-1 one, as she hit 3 screaming winners to break to get back on serve. She wasn't able to sustain that level high enough to consolidate, because Jabeur essentially had to redline with how consistent and solid Iga was from the ground. Swiatek continued to hold her own on serve and broke once more to seal her 29-minute opening set rout. The two big aspects of that first set scoreline was the serve and return. Iga served phenomenally, as her first serve percentage was incredibly high at 90%. Ons' service numbers meanwhile were very poor, as she only made 43% of first serves and won just 20% of points on first serve, which is just absolutely abominable. She won even more points on her second serve than the first, which is crazy. A lot of this is due to Iga's superb returning, as she literally didn't miss a single return in that first set. It's the little things there that make the huge difference in the end, making Jabeur play that one extra ball instead of allowing her easy points. In her semifinal against Caroline Garcia, Ons was getting free points and easy holds, because for one, she served much better in that match, but also Garcia's return positioning was pretty poor as compared to Iga, who backed up and gave herself more time to read Jabeur's serve. The second set eerily mirrored the first, as Swiatek broke Ons early to jump out to a 3-love lead. Jabeur did have slight openings in literally all 3 games, but foolish shot choices prevented her from making a mark. Down 6-2 3-love 40-15 and facing a total of 3 break points to go down a double break, I thought this would be it right here for Iga, and believed that she just run away with the entire match and give Ons yet another bakery product. At this moment though, Ons seemed to rediscover her first serve and finally began hitting her spots to get herself out of trouble. She was finally able to get Iga to miss a return, which is crucial, because Lord knows she needed all the help she could get. That right there, that 3-love game, was a big momentum shift, as Ons started to really go for her shots more and just raised her level, while Swiatek started to miss a lot more first serves and started to spray more errors. Like in the first set, Iga broke to go up 4-2, but Ons kept fighting hard and had to play some very good tennis to once again break back. Jabeur's level was once again very shaky when it came time to consolidate, but luckily for her, Iga was also in poor form and aided Ons with uncharacteristic errors in getting the hold. The 4-all game was probably the biggest in this entire match, as it was arguably Ons' biggest opportunity to send this match to a decider. She held break points at 15-40, but squandered the first after missing a very routine forehand approach long after getting Iga on the defensive. Then at 30-40, Jabeur netted a down the line backhand, which could have won her the point. The Tunisian managed to claim an additional break opportunity, kind of similar to the last, where she netted a backhand down the line shot, which this time was a slice. That raises another point. Ons rarely utilized her slice backhand in this match. That could have been a really important weapon to use, especially against Iga's forehand with her extreme grip and overall shakiness on that side. She gave Iga too much of a comfortable rhythm, especially early on, and a nice change of pace would have definitely helped her in the latter stages of the first set and early parts of the second. Jabeur was never able to make a mark in any more of Iga's service games from that point forward, but she did very well to hold serve down 4-5 and then 5-6, where she faced championship point. Iga oddly enough changed rackets at that point, which was very strange, and people were trying to accuse her of gamesmanship. After the match, Ons said that she didn't even see Iga change the rackets, so y'all can ease up on Swiatek for that. In the tiebreak, Jabeur started off very poor, making 4 sloppy mistakes to go down 4-1. She wrote off 4 straight points on and had the mini break up 5-4, but Iga played a tremendous point there, hitting a screaming forehand down the line winner to get back on serve. That was the final turning point of the match, as Swiatek just outlasted Jabeur those final 2 points and got the error she needed to claim victory. I first want to credit Ons for how well she fought, not only throughout the match, but this entire tournament. This run was honestly a bit unexpected because I felt that her level dropped a bit after the Wimbledon finals loss, and I predicted her to lose to Shelby Rogers. She did come somewhat close to falling to Rogers in that 3rd round match, but she fought hard like she's done the entire 2 weeks and problem solved her way through. She did that exact same thing here in the finals, coming back from that deep 6-2-3 love deficit and then getting those crucial holes late in that second set. She wasn't able to stage the full comeback because Iga, for one, is more mentally tough and not as forgiving as other players. And then 2, the pressure and weight of this being a slam final definitely played a role. It was devastating to see Ons in tears after the match behind the scenes with her team, because you know how much she wants this slam, how bad she wanted it not only for herself but for her country and the Arab community. The back-to-back slam finals losses will definitely sting, but you have to look at it with a glass half full. She made 2 slam finals. That's incredible in one season. Before this season, Ons didn't even have a 500 level title to her name, and now here she is, back to her deserved number 2 spot with 2 slam finals finishes. Practically all the players on tour would kill for that, except for probably Iga. It probably will take Ons some time to get over that hump of trying to claim that first slam. Players like Simona Halep and Kim Clijsters needed time before they finally won their first majors, and once they did, they went on to win more. Ons, your time is coming. Briefly going back to the match, Iga was the better player and definitely deserved to win, but had Ons won a couple more points here and there, this could have been very different. This could have been a very different result. Now, giving credit to Iga, I thought she played extremely well to open this final, and was by far the best tennis we've seen from her this fortnight. Her forehand held up very well and was overall extremely consistent and wasn't missing from the ground at all. Swiatek's footwork and movement was absolutely incredible. Her defense was a major factor in her success, as she just kept making Jabeur play that one extra ball and pressured her into going closer to the lines. Her defensive skills were also important in the pressure moments, where her game was starting to fall apart a little bit more. I feel like Ons, for one, should have mixed it up more with the slices and changes of pace like I said earlier. I felt that many times when Iga was being a total wall, Ons was too busy trying to hang with her from the ground and rally with her, which was a losing battle. And then 2, I think Ons should have kept targeting the Swiatek forehand and break it down consistently. You can't give Iga time at all on that forehand or she will take advantage. It needs to be deeper with pace or with greater height. At first, I felt that Iga really shouldn't have won this slam because I felt that her level was pretty below her standards and at times downright ugly. The match with Julie Niemeyer was the one she really should have lost, as she was down a set and break and was literally missing every shot after 5 rallies, after 5 balls. That was definitely Iga at her lowest and most vulnerable, and a lot of people would have beaten her at that level, but Julie definitely felt the pressure and allowed Swiatek right back in. I said this before, but this was somewhat like a typical Swiatek slam or big tournament win, where she plays decent the first couple rounds, really poorly in the 3rd and 4th, and then she slowly starts to raise her level from the quarters on, and then totally peaks in the final round. Initially, I was a little bit annoyed because I felt that Serena, for example, could have beaten Iga with the level she showed this tournament. I then realized though that you could say the same with Caroline Garcia, for example, who was heads and shoulders the best player of the tournament before the semifinals. To win 7 matches in a row is a difficult task, task. It's not easy whatsoever. It's difficult to maintain a high level of tennis for 2 weeks straight, especially with the added mental component of the latter rounds. Jessica Pegula, for example, she played well up until the quarterfinals, where she had a mental block in a sense and played probably her weakest match against Iga. Similar with Sabalenka, who played great in the quarterfinals against Pliskova and had various openings to beat Iga, being up 4-2 on the decider, but she kind of faltered towards the end. It's just not easy to handle the pressure at these stages, and Iga showed that she's heads and shoulders above the field in this regard. I was honestly kind of expecting her to lose these past 3 matches, but giving her credit, Swiatek was able to raise her level at the right moments to get the job done. Don't get me mistaken, I don't think Iga played bad, and I feel like that's a common misconception. I believe the issue is we saw how well Iga played during her streak, as she looked virtually unbeatable at times. We saw a lower level of that here, which again wasn't bad, but definitely not her best. This title win is kind of iconic when you think about it because of how unexpected it was. First, Iga complained a bit about the US Open balls prior to the start of the tournament, saying that they played differently than the men's and fly a bit more. She also struggled immensely with her forehand and overall rhythm prior to this tournament and those losses to Haddad Maia and Keys. She never really panicked and just worked her ass off in those 10 days before the US Open, hitting as many forehands as possible to get her rhythm back. She did what she needed to do, and it's honestly inspiring to see her resolve. Iga knew she wasn't playing her best tennis this tournament, and she had her shaky moments in this final, but she didn't show any signs of frustration like how she did at the French Open sometimes. Speaking of which, I truly feel that Iga's 3 slam wins are all iconic in itself, and first the 2020 French, where she absolutely tore through the field out of nowhere, barely dropping games, then coming back 2 years later as the overwhelming favorite and managing all the pressure and expectation to leave the single slam club, and then now coming into this tournament with subpar form, but still fighting her way through to win in the end. This one might be the most important and most special because it proves that Iga's so good fundamentally and mentally that she could win a major championship, beating 3 top 10 players on her B, C, and even D level, and that's just scary. This is a bit of a double-edged sword because it's good that there is a consistent top player that has now backed up their great season with 2 slam wins. However, it is a bad look for the tour that they weren't strong enough to step it up and prevent Swiatek from essentially stealing the slam. I know steal has a negative connotation, so to clarify, Iga really had no business winning the slam, but it was fully deserved. Many people acknowledging Iga's up and down play compared this to Serena's 2015 French Open run, where she had to fight her way through some pretty patchy play and illness to get through to get the win there. After further thought, I kind of do see some slight comparisons there, but it's definitely different because I feel that regardless, nobody in that draw was beating Serena, regardless of how ill she was. In this case, however, I do believe certain players would have taken out Iga. I firmly believe had Chen Wenjing beaten Niemeyer in round 3, she would have ousted Iga in the 4th round. Then in the quarters, Kvitova and Muguruza likely could have done it, and in the semis, Collins and Pliskova and Garcia at her best could have caused some great problems in that final. However, reiterating my main point, those are all a bunch of if scenarios, and at the end of the day, those players lost all playing subpar tennis themselves. It's just disappointing really because normally when you have a really good standout player like an Iga, the whole tour is usually enhanced because others are forced to raise their level of play to compete for these coveted titles. It was like that amongst the big 3, and even now with Carlos Alcaraz, and how the youngster literally seems to bring out the best tennis in all of his opponents. Then most famously with Serena, literally everyone plays their absolute best against her. We saw it in this tournament alone, with Kontaveit legit playing her best match of the season, and then with Tomljanovic playing the literal best match of her life to send the poor 40-year-old into evolution. I want that with Iga. I want players to rise to the occasion and match her level. We saw a peak of that with the Sabalenka semi and then a touch in the finals with Ons, but Jabeur just couldn't take those dire opportunities and openings to bring this match to its utmost potential. It will be interesting to see whether Iga will continue to be a rather dominant figure and force on the tour, or if one of these women will step up themselves to truly challenge her, because right now it seems like a lot of them are intimidated and sort of laid down for her in these bigger occasions. This is honestly one of the weakest tours in history, but not because of the gameplay itself, but because they lack that true champion mentality. I think the tour can take solace though in knowing that Iga isn't unbeatable and coaches have found new tactics to take down the pole. However, at the end of the day, it's up to the player in that moment whether they can remain mentally strong enough to play their game when needed and match Iga in her mental toughness, because right now she's just in a league of her own. That's it for this video, and let me know in the comments your thoughts on the final and whether you believe that Iga's win is a good thing for her and a bad thing for the tour like I do. Also, make sure you subscribe and click the notification bell so you're notified whenever I post the men's final recap as well. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time here on Grand Slam Tennis News Today.